Let's go. Unstoppable kick-ass confidence. Are you ready?
Welcome to the Raw and Unscripted show with Christopher Rausch, where we help you overcome your self-created crap without the self-help fluffy bullshit. Now please welcome our host, Christopher Rausch.
What's going on, rock stars? Welcome back to another episode of the Raw and Unscripted show. It is Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we are live every single Tuesday bringing you the absolute best content on the internet designed to help you get over your excuses, your tolerations, and live a kick-ass, unstoppable life. I'm Christopher Rausch, known as the No Excuses Coach, and it's an honor to be with you guys. We've been going here 5 years. I was just telling my guests backstage that it's pretty exciting. We're in 28 different countries, so thank you guys all for listening, wherever it is that you're listening from, and I would love for you to send me an email, info@noexcusescoach.com. Let me know what country you're listening from and what it is that you would like to see on the show, because I'm here to serve you. So let me know what challenges and opportunities you have going on in your life, and I'd be happy to have a show on that and be able to continue to cater and bring the best possible content for you. So thank you guys for being here every single week. If you're new to me and you're new to the show, feel free to go to noexcusescoach.com. You can find out all about me. There's a multifaceted array about me, and tonight I'm looking forward to this conversation because, again, like always, I want you to take notes. It's all about that progressive action. It's all about that 1%. Every single day in every single way, what is it that we can do to continue to grow, to continue to learn, to continue to become that person that when our time comes, we can look back on our life and feel proud and feel honor and feel accomplishment. And so many people are out there, they're playing the someday game, and they're hoping, wishing, and praying that someday when this happens and when this happens and this happens, they're going to choose to be happy. And so I invite you guys listening tonight. There's a reason why you're listening, right? We hear that when the student is ready, the teacher shows. The teacher is right here. And here's the opportunity for you. Write down 3 strategies tonight that you will implement in the next 7 days. You think you could do that? Yes, you can. Absolutely. There's 7 days, there's 24 hours in the day. 3 strategies that you'll do that you'll be willing to get outside of your comfort zone on and take that imperfect action. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to plead with you. It's not about perfection. It's not about, oh, well, I have this and I have that and I have this. I am sitting here today as a former 7th grade homeless dropout who lived on the streets, who tried to kill himself twice, who had a gun put to his head, who had all these different situations happen, that ultimately I earned a master's degree. Ultimately, I created this amazing life for myself. I had a successful career in corporate. I've had all these things happen because I just kept going. I had that belief and I had that faith that through every particular quote unquote failure, that there was an opportunity, there was a lesson. And I have failed way more times than I've been successful. But the reason why I'm so successful is because I learn. And I sit there and I realize, okay, there's another way not to do that. And because I've taken that imperfect action and I've strove, trying to remember how you can say that. I've strove or striven. I'm trying to think of what I've dedicated my ass to every single day, dedicating myself to becoming that next version of myself. And so I invite you guys to do that tonight because we have an amazing guest with us tonight. We're going to be talking about negative self-talk. We're going to be talking about agency. We're going to be talking about getting out of your own way because that's what it takes. And so I invite you to take down notes. And if you're watching this live, truth be told, here in the United States, we're having an election. And I know we have 28 countries that are watching us and listening to us. But tonight we have a debate going on. So it might be a little sparse in the comment section. But if you're watching this and you happen to come into this, please feel free to comment. Feel free to ask us questions. If you watch this on replay, which I know a lot of my East Coast friends do, feel free to still ask us questions and comment. And we'll get back to you. I'll make sure either my guest or myself get back to you. So without any further ado, I've had the pleasure of having an amazing conversation with this gentleman, as I always do with my guests before they come on the show. And I have to thank Mark Mawini of the Coach's Jungle for introducing us. But please welcome to the Raw Unscripted show, Mr. John Iverson. John, welcome to the show, brother.
Christopher Rausch, thank you for having me. Great to be here.
You're absolutely welcome. I'm excited for this conversation. I love your background. It's cozy like mine.
It's cozy, and obviously I like music and musical instruments, so there's a bunch of them in our house, and that's just a few of them. So
I was just going to ask you, did you intentionally set up your background to have guitars hanging behind you?
No, this used to be, I have 4 kids. This used to be a bedroom for one of my sons, and after he moved out, it's like, I want to make a music room. So I hung up instruments and do some recording in here with Logic Pro. But just recently, we had a pool table in the basement. We moved out of the basement. Now all the music stuff is going down there. And like what my son comes over on Mondays and Tuesdays and writes music and works on music, and my other kids are doing music stuff. So it's kind of this communal music space with 5 amps down there, a bunch of guitars and other keyboards and pedal steel and lap steels, and it's a really cool space. So anyway,
okay, I've got an immediate question.
Yep.
What's your address? I'm gonna come play.
I can tell you that.
What? No, actually, what state are you coming from?
Minnesota.
Minnesota. You guys got that accent out there. I have friends from Minnesota.
Wait. No, we don't. Everyone else has an accent. We don't have an accent.
Right. Exactly. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for bringing the music. And my first real question of the conversation tonight is, given what you heard in my intro, what do you want to get across most to people listening tonight? People are struggling. They're feeling overwhelmed. There was self-doubt, fear, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What are the messages that you want people to walk away from knowing in their heart of hearts about what we're going to be talking about tonight?
Yeah, I think maybe the biggest ones that I've come across with myself and with other folks is it's really important to have an awareness of our thoughts, and the thoughts that repeat themselves and turn into stories in our head, because it's quite likely that whatever story or many of the stories you're telling yourself, they're just not true, but you think they're true, and those stories get in the way of you doing whatever it is you want to do. So I'd say that's probably the biggest one. And then also, we had talked about the role of agency, the role that agency plays in taking action and improving. And also, that issue of there's pain. We all resist change. We have this immunity to change. There's a book with that name. It's a great book. And we have this immunity to change, and change is painful, but not changing is painful too. It's two different things. It's going to hurt either way. So why not change, right? At least try to change. And change can be, people might be resisting it because it's like they're thinking of big changes, but you can make tiny little incremental changes that'll have a lot of value for you. So I think that there you go. There's some things to think about. Take away.
I could dive off the deep end on all of those things. So in talking about that change, tell me about a time in your life where you were going down a path where you thought you had it figured out, and the rug was pulled out from underneath you, and it proved to be one of the lowest experiences in your life. But in retrospect, you realize through that pain, it's helped you become the John Iverson that we're talking to today.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty easy one. I've been in public education for many, many years.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah, thank you. I've been in many different positions. I've been a teacher, assistant principal. I directed a planetarium. Most recently, my position was as an innovation specialist in a large urban district in Minnesota. And I was principal in a couple different districts, and that one of those experiences was really good, and then another one was not good. And that I came out of that experience. I was not aligned at all with my supervisor regarding values and integrity. And we can talk about values, because if you're not aligned with your core values, and or the organization is not aligned with your core values, you're gonna struggle, and it's gonna be painful. So you might want to think about addressing that. But I wasn't aligned there, and I came out of that position after being in it for a few years, and I came out of it feeling like a failure, and kind of lived with that for a number of years. And I remember my daughter, but that was my story. It wasn't necessarily true. It was just my story, because I remember my daughter saying to me once, "Well, you're successful." I'm like, "I'm not successful," but it was interesting that she sees me that way. Anyway, so after some time, as I was watching other people advance their careers or make moves, it struck me that story I was telling myself was kind of holding me in place, and that it would be wise for me to begin looking into what the options are. Or another way of saying it is, I got very curious about why I wasn't doing what I wanted to do. And I got very curious about why I did things I didn't want to do. And then just for everybody too, it's like we all do that. So why do we do that? Why do we not do what we want to do and do what we don't want to do?
Wow, there's a rabbit hole right there. So in that, what would you identify as like the major pain point that caused you to identify with the fact this trajectory is no longer in alignment with my values, which you talked about before?
So I think you can look at other people and compare yourself, and that can be damaging. I also think you can look at other people and compare yourself in a positive sense and go, oh, I want that. I want that. And I was seeing people, taking action. And it wasn't like I was envious. It was increased my awareness that there were options. I did have agency and that I could do things. So I think it was just, an increased awareness of the options that I had.
I love that. I love that. And there's something that you said in there. You said failing. And I literally just did a TikTok on it earlier today talking about fear. And one of the fears I talked about was failing. And I look at it back that I'm all about shifting perspective. We can just shift our perspective just a little bit. And so I talk about the fact that there's fear and then there's excitement. And I'll give everybody an example. I was at Six Flags Magic Mountain here in Southern California. And in front of me, the people were like, oh my God, look at how we were standing in front of Colossus, which at that time was the biggest roller coaster. And everybody's like, oh my God, the group in front of me is like, oh, look how tall it is. And oh, look at the loop-de-loop. And that's going to be so, I still get my hair stands up because I remember this so vividly. And they were just so excited. And then the people behind me were literally like, oh my God, that's so tall. And look at that loop-de-loop. And they're screaming. And what if the maintenance guy wasn't here? And then it dawned on me, this is in my 30s, so this is over 20 years ago. And it dawned on me, I'm like, this is the same situation, but it's a little bit of a different perspective. We have excitement over here and we have fear over here. What is it that we can do to shift our perspective from that fear to the excitement? And so that's my question for you. When you think about failing, what is it that we can do to get people to shift their perspective about failing? Because as we know, we can fail our way to success. But more importantly, what advice would you have for somebody who right now is got that fear of failing, that fear of judgment, that fear of whatever it might be? What are your thoughts on overcoming that and shifting that to excitement?
I think there's a lot of thoughts on that. But one thing that comes up, and I don't know if you've talked about this on your show, but something I learned from a gentleman named Jason Jaggard, who's the CEO of Novus Global Coaching. He talks about the 4 survival skills. And the 4 survival skills are the need to look good, the need to feel good, the need to be right, and the need to be in control.
Wow. That's my mom.
Yeah. And those are all things we wrestle with, I think, at some level. And again, creating an awareness that you're even wrestling with those things is a huge step in a positive direction. But if you're fearful of something, of some change, it probably is in one of those areas. You're fearful about looking good, feeling good, being right, or being in control, or having that taken away from you, right? And that's just one example of where you could look. There's others too, but I think.
Which one do you struggle with the most out of those 4?
I think everyone struggle. Well, I think feel good and look good are the big ones. And I think looking good is really important to a lot of us, and we don't even realize it. And it's like you talked about failure. If in your organization or in your thought life, not attaining some goal is a failure, then that's not going to feel good, and you're not going to like the way it looks to other people. So you may not even put yourself out there and tell someone that you're after a goal, because you're afraid of how it's going to look when you maybe don't realize that goal. So that fear of failure, I think, is deeply connected to that need to look good. And then the feeling good is, I think, one we struggle with all the time. It's like, I just started doing this 40-day plan with my wife and a couple of my kids and a friend. And it's where we're doing 40 days. And we've got things we are committed to doing, which is, we're all doing something in the dietary area. We're all drinking half our body weight in ounces of water every day.
Amen.
Right there. I'm almost there.
Yes, amen. I got a big old jug right here. I drink a gallon a day.
And where you work out 4 times a week, you get out in nature 4 times a week, and no alcohol. This is for 40 days, right? So would I rather get up, or I went for a run this morning. I hadn't been doing that recently. So I got up and went for a run. And while I was out there and I did it, it felt good, especially when I was done, it felt good. But it also would have felt really good just to stay in bed. That would have been really nice, right? Mm-hmm. So there's that, there's that struggle there between, it's 2 different things that are, one is an immediate, that feels good, staying in bed. The other one is something that's delayed. If you have to have that discipline, that self-discipline, or develop it, and bit by bit, again, developing your habits, that self-discipline to go out and do the thing you want to do that feels good instead of doing the immediate thing that feels good, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. You do talk about the 40 days. Have you ever heard of the program 75 Hard?
Well, I just heard about that recently. I'm not familiar with it, but 2 people just shared that with me. They said the same thing. Have you heard about that? I'm like,
yeah, I've done 75 Hard 3 times, and that is 75 days, clean eating, no alcohol. So for me, it was no sugar, no not carbohydrates, no wheat, no gluten, no alcohol. So basically, I had a lot of chicken, a lot of vegetables, some fruit, and I found out there was healthy ways to make desserts. But it's 75 days of that, and then also it's they say a gallon of water, but I say the same thing you do: half your body weight in ounces of water, because it's hard for a 98-pound person to drink a gallon of water. So half your body weight in ounces of water. Read 10 pages of a personal development book. You have to read it. You can't listen to it. So you have to sit down and read 10 pages of a personal development book. One that's interesting is a daily progress picture. And so it's 5. So healthy eating. And the other thing is 2 workouts a day. One of them has to be outside, 45 minutes each.
wow.
And what you said before, and it was funny because I was writing it down as you said the word. It was about discipline. So I've done this 3 times in my life, and I've done it 3 times in my life when I did not want to do it, because my brain was sitting there thinking about it, and it was like, no, I don't want to do that. It's summertime. And I usually gain about 5-7 pounds in the summertime. We have a pool, we barbecue, drink beer, whatever. I let it go and I have a good time. And then usually by August, September, I'm back on track and I lose the weight real quick and I'm, all good. And I'm still healthy during that time, but I've done it that time. And what's interesting is it definitely creates that discipline. And what it really does is it creates a sense of pride within yourself, because there was one time where it was 11, I think it was almost 10:50. It was almost 11 o'clock at night. I got into bed. This is when I worked in corporate, and I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I got into bed and I went and put my head on the pillow and I went, wait, I didn't do my second workout today. Because I was on a program of how I did it. I worked out outside. I went for my walks or my runs or whatever. And then I did my gym workout in the afternoon. So I was pretty prescriptive, but that day my cycle got screwed up. And I said, oh, later on, I'm going to do it. And then, so I got into bed and I kissed my wife goodnight. She was downstairs. I got into bed and then I went, oh shit, I have not done my second workout. And there was a momentary lapse where I said, there is not a single person in this world who would ever know. I mean, I announced it on Facebook, but nobody's following me around like fucking hidden camera. But I would know. Right. So I had the self-discipline to get up and put my shoes on and go back downstairs. My wife says, what are you doing? And I said, I forgot to do my second workout. Her immediate response was, nobody's ever going to know. You have to get up in the morning. I said, no, I'm going to know. And that's where I realized, when we tell ourselves that we're doing our best really isn't what it is that our best is. I'm actually watching a show right now called Special Forces, something or other. It's these reality stars and actresses that are going through Special Forces training. And it's incredible what they think they can do and what they actually can do. So my question to you, before I ramble on anymore, is people say they're doing the best they can. And obviously you're doing the 40 days challenge. I've done 75 hard 3 times. Mm-hmm. What is it we can say about our best? Why do we lie to ourselves? Because I found myself one day, I put my keys on my dresser and I said, I did the best I could with a situation at work. And I stopped myself and I went, Chris, that was not your best. You're full of shit. If a camera was following you around, that was definitely not your best. And so I went on a quest about best and pride and everything else. So for people listening, what is it we can do? Maybe you could share a story where you thought you were doing your best, but also more importantly, that discipline. How can we have more discipline in our lives to make those better choices and decisions that we'll be proud of the next day? A
couple things come to mind. One is, I'm going to kind of direct a quick question back to you, but the last time you completed the 75-day hard, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give yourself on that effort?
A 10.
Okay.
It was brutal.
So yeah. Let's say that, okay, you're saying it was a 10. What if that 10 is really a 6 and you could achieve a 10? What would you need to do differently to make that a 10 when considering reframing what you did as a 6? Does that make sense?
Yeah, probably not bitch. when I'm thinking about it, I complained to myself more than anything, where I should have just been more like, all right, I'm excited about doing this, but I was more bitching about it.
Yeah. So, and my point is that when I ask you that question, it causes you to think, oh, there were other things. I could have done better in some areas. And so a question like that can help. I think another thing to consider is when you're doing that type of program, or you're trying to achieve any goal. Are you familiar with Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert?
No, I know Dilbert, but I'm not familiar with the name.
I think Dilbert is hilarious. Scott Adams has written a number of books. Some, I don't necessarily agree with, but some I do. And he wrote this one book. It was titled something like "Goals Are for Idiots: How to Fail at Everything and Still Win," or something like that. That's
nice.
Close. Anyway, but his whole thing, which I really agree with, is this: it's if you've got a goal, that's fine. You can have a goal to lose 20 pounds, whatever. It doesn't matter, whatever it is. A goal to increase your income, a goal to whatever. But having the goal, and I think a lot of us do this, we set goals and then we don't achieve them. And it's like, I didn't achieve it, I failed, right? So those are like goals out there that you've set, but those aren't the goal. The goals that you need to be thinking about are different ones. And those are the process goals that you say you will commit to. So a process goal for losing weight would be maybe I'm going to get up every day at 6 a.m. and I'm going to walk 4 miles, right? And it might be every time I sit down and eat, half my plate is going to be vegetables. Those are process goals. They're not goals. They're not like number goals. Like I'm going to eat a pound of vegetables. You're committing to eating the vegetables. You're committing to doing the walk. And if you do those things, you will ultimately reach this other goal. So the goal is pretty meaningless. The actual number, whatever you're going for, it's the things you implement daily, the routines you have that are going to help you reach that goal. And that's what Scott Adams says in his book. And I'm like, that was the first time I'd read that. And I'm like, oh yeah, he's absolutely right. Because I worked in public education for a long time. And we talked about goals a lot. And they're SMART goals, the strategic, measurable, attainable results.
That's what I was thinking. You're reading my mind again.
Yep. So, but we weren't good at all at achieving those goals, because we set a goal for like the end of the school year, and then we'd kind of like do some things, but there was never like a clear framework for, how our behaviors were going to change between when we set that goal and when we had hoped to reach it.
I love that. And what you're talking about, really, for everybody listening, the way I deduce what you've said is what we do is we keep our promises. I always try to find the simplest way of stating something and find a way that people can hang on to that. Yeah. And so I ask people, like, what would it be like if you kept your promises to yourself? What would you accomplish in your life if you just kept your promises to yourself? Right. And I love how you stated the goals, because it's very specific. And that's one thing we have to look for is the rabbit hole I'm going down is why. Like, okay, I want to lose 20 pounds. Why? Because I want to feel better. Why? Because I want to live longer. Why? Because I want to be here for my kids. Why? And then you get into that. And what you do is when you find a big enough why, you have a big enough how. And what that does is that creates that leverage for us to do our best. So sit there and say, okay, really, and I love questions, as you know. And so I think about it in terms of this. Will I be happy with this decision or this choice tomorrow? Right. So that's a frame of reference that I use when I'm about to do something that maybe perhaps I'm doing in the spur of the moment, where I'm trying to give myself the excuse like, oh, well, you're in already great shape. Anyway, Chris, you can have that drink. You can have that donut. The other day I excused myself and had 3 different donuts because I'm like, well, we never have donuts. And we got this. Then there's a brand new place. So I had 3 donuts. And at about 3 or 4 hours later, I regretted having the second 2 donuts. Because I'm like, Chris, you really didn't need to have those extra 2 donuts. Did you really get any value out of that? And so I set that up as a frame of reference. The next time we have donuts is like to sit there and not go overboard. So I create that leverage in my brain to go, okay, is this fulfilling the biggest why? So for people listening and watching, what is your recommendation for us to find that why? To find that deeper meaning that can be our North Star, that in those moments, I don't feel like going for a run. I don't feel like drinking half my body weight in ounces of water. I don't feel like reading the 10 pages. I don't feel like having that tough conversation. What is some suggestions that you might have? And maybe you could tell us a personal example in your story of how we can have that bigger leverage to achieve that why, so that we don't regret it later.
Yeah, well, I'll go to I have a couple ways I could go on that. Let's talk a bit about core values, because
good.
So core values change over time, and they can be aspirational, and you don't have to nail them down perfect. I think I will say this other thing. I think we tend to not take action on things because we think we're waiting for the right thing to come along, the right idea or the right process or the right diet or whatever.
That's what I said in the intro.
It just doesn't matter. Just try things out. Try things and fail. It doesn't matter. Learn from them. Just take action and try things, because not taking action, well, you're not going to get anywhere, right? You're just going to have
regret.
Anyway, so core values. So my core values are, and you can identify these a number of ways. I went to a website and I used kind of their process, but if anybody wants a link to that, they can reach out to me. I was given permission by this organization to share it with people I work with. Anyway, my core values are adventure, family, creativity, autonomy, and health. And as mentioned earlier, if I'm not aligned in those areas, which in some areas I'm kind of not right now, so I'm working on that. But those things help guide me in the things that I choose to do. And I don't know if this directly answers your question, but so what I do is I try not to do things that aren't aligned with those, because I don't want to do them, right? I don't want to do them. And they just kind of suck the energy out of me. But when I'm doing things aligned with my core values, it can still be a lot of work, but it gives me a lot of energy. So I'll give you a couple examples. One is just last week, I completed a 9-day course in the Northwoods of Minnesota, in Grand Marais, Minnesota. And it was a course on how to build timber frame structures, right? So we were there for 9 days. I took it with two of my kids. My kids are adults, they're in their 30s. And we spent 9 days creating a timber frame structure that we can raise ourselves. So so we left, we took the structure with us. It's not put together yet. That's the next phase. But that all aligns with my core values. Like, doing that was physical work. I lost weight doing that. It was wonderful. Still, it hits on health. We're doing the work ourselves, and we can raise it ourselves out in the woods. There's autonomy. We created this thing. It was like chunks of pine, and now it's pine with holes in it, and we put it together. So there's creativity. I did it with family, and the whole thing's kind of an adventure. So there's one example of aligning my life with my core values. Another one is I've been skiing since I was 6 years old. So skiing for many, many years. Several years ago, my oldest son said, do you want to learn how to backcountry ski? And okay, here's a couple examples. I knew what backcountry skiing was. I had met people at airports who were backcountry skiing, and they would tell me about it. And the story in my head was, well, I'm from Minnesota. I don't backcountry ski. That doesn't make sense. You got to have mountains and stuff. So I never pursued it. And then my son said, well, you want to do it? And I'm like, yeah, okay. So I'm doing something that I'd never done before, which, all of us can do that, because I had that story in my head. But anyway, so we took the avalanche certification class, and then a couple of my other sons joined, and they take the courses. And over the few years, we've had some good adventures with family that require a certain level of health, or you're going to get healthier doing it. And so the last one was we're in Rocky Mountain National Park. We hike in for a few miles, and we hike up this couloir, which is a narrow area of snow. And this is May, because you want to hike them in May because the avalanche danger is diminished. But you got to be off the slope by 10 a.m. because they start to loosen up, and then they can slide, which adds to the adventure. So that's another activity that's aligning with my core values. Here's some things I don't like to do. I don't like to invoice clients. I hate doing that. It's awful. I don't like doing paperwork. I don't like doing that kind of stuff. I'm not necessarily thrilled when I go out and mow my lawn. I still have to do it. Right. I'm not paying anyone to do it right now. But, there's things that aren't aligned with my values I don't really care to do. And there's things that are aligned with my values. So if you can identify your core values and then look and identify whether or not you're aligned with them, and then make the necessary changes to increase the alignment, you will no doubt be in a better position.
Amen, bro. You talked about so many different things in that deliverance right there. I appreciate that, because you talked about the commitment, right? When we choose to outline what our boundaries are, what values are, there are North Star. They sit there and say, okay, and I just recently did this exercise with my group coaching members. Is I sat there and I give them a whole list of 100 values, and I said, I want you to pick your top 5.
It's a good way to do it.
And then we have a group chat, and they came back and they go, oh my God, this is so hard. And I said, yeah. I said, but the point of picking those top 5 is that you're going to be able to use those in those moments of indecision. Does this align with my values? Yes or no? And so
Absolutely.
oftentimes, John, I know we use this, we use the gray area like I did, like, oh yeah, I'm in great shape, I can have the 3 donuts. We sit there and say, does this align with my core values? Yes or no? And then we can sit there and take that immediate response and sit there and say, no, it does not. What is it that I can do instead? Right. And look for options as opposed to excuses. That's what I teach people how to do, is how to have that boundary and how to have that North Star and how to have that commitment. Whoops. Where did John go?
Yep. I'm still here.
Oh, you went black. Oh, there you go. Oh, I was like, what the hell? Is having that North Star, to be able to have that commitment, to have that discipline like we talked about before. And I'll share a story with you.
Yeah.
For me, it was back in 2008. I was very successful on paper. I made great money. I was in coaching. I was in speaking. I had my corporate career, healthy and everything else. But I found myself, there was an aspect that was empty and I could not figure out what it was. I didn't have a coach at the time, and I went to a funeral. And I sat in the back of the funerals for one of my coworkers, and I watched everybody getting up there and eulogizing this coworker who died of cancer. And I knew her. I didn't know her, but I knew her. And I was there to always pay my respects, as I always do. And then my buddy Dave Riley gets up there in his gray, I'll never forget it, gray suit with a pink tie. And he gets up there and starts blubbering about how great Ann is and all the things I did not know about Ann. And there's something that passed through my brain was, be like Ann. And because I'm always looking for those golden nuggets. And then it occurred to me, we're all here celebrating the life of Ann. And so I thought about it for myself, my own perspective, because I'm always working on myself, is like, Chris, if you died tomorrow, who would show up and what would they say? And that's a tough question. That is a super tough question, because my honest answer, I wanted to create an answer. But and I sat there and I said, no. I said, Chris, 10 or 15 people would show up. They would bring bottles of Jack Daniels and cases of Miller Genuine Draft and Motley Crue and Bon Jovi records. And they for sure would talk about all the stupid shit you've done. Remember that time, or crazy stuff or whatever. Like, remember that time Chris passed out. Remember that time he did this. Remember that time he did this. And then the postscript on the whole thing would be, oh yeah, he was a 7th grade homeless dropout who changed the world. And I thought about it. I'm like, that's not how I want to be remembered. But here's how I'm living my life, thinking that someday I'm going to be this great guy who's going to change the world. And so what I did was, I was driving home. It was probably a 60-mile drive, and I was driving home and it was bugging me. I'm like, God, I don't want to remember it this way. So I went home, told the story 1,000 times, and I literally took one of these, a yellow pad of paper, and I sat down at my desk and I said, what can I do to change that story? And so I decided to do something that's totally uncomfortable, that I have all my coaching clients do, is I wrote my eulogy. And I thought I was in my 30s, and I sat down and I'm like, I don't know what to say. I'm like, okay, we're gathered here today, and like, what do I want to be remembered for? Okay. At that point, I didn't really want to be a dad, but somehow I thought I would be a dad. So I wrote it. And I got a full 8.5 by 11 page. I went and got a glass of water. I came back and I literally took the pad and I put it over to the side, and I was going to get back to what I was doing on the computer. And instead I sat there and I said, well, I got to read what I wrote. And I'm a pretty good writer. And usually I write things on a first draft and it's fine. And I'm like, okay, I'll read it later after I've had a time to digest it. But instead I picked it up and I started reading it because I wanted to see what I really wrote. And then I was like, well, if I was at a funeral, I would say it out loud. So God is my witness on a stack of Bibles. I sat there and Christopher Rausch, today we're gathered here to celebrate the life of Christopher Rausch. Great this, great that, did this, blah, blah, blah. And then I got to the middle part and I'm like, it said, Christopher Rausch will have fought for what's right and what's fair. He will have risked for which that mattered. And he will have left the earth a better place for who he was and what he did. And God, I swear to God, John, I start crying.
Sure.
I had no idea, no expectation, no anticipation, not boo-hooing, but I just had tears running down my face. And I felt this overwhelming sense of emotion of pride, and to be like, oh my God, that I was homeless, that I did these things and I changed the world. I made it a better place and I fought for what's right and what's fair. And from that point forward, I sat there and thought, okay, how can I ensure that this happens no matter when I die, whether it's tomorrow, whether it's 50 years from now, whatever it's going to be. And so what I made it a pledge to do every single day is to wake up and set the intention of fulfilling that end goal. Because so oftentimes that we think with the end in mind and we work backwards, we often achieve it. It's like a roadmap. It's like, okay, what is it going to take for me to get to that 40 pound? What's going to be the last thing I do when I lose that 39th pound? Okay, it's going to be the fact that I ate more vegetables. It's going to be the fact that I stuck to the commitment to do the second workout. It's going to be that whatever it was. And so every single day, as God is my witness, I've sat and I've set the intention every morning to fulfill this goal. And so somehow throughout the day, I sit there and I'm like, have I fought for what's right and what's fair today? Have I risked what's the matter? Have I done something to make the world a better place? And that has been my North Star. in the same way you're talking about the values. So my question for you is when we think about that term commitment, what is it for you in your life with people that have been aside from yourself? Because we talk about agency. We have agency over ourselves. We have control over ourselves. But perhaps what is it the advice you can give to how to deal with people that perhaps are naysayers in our life, that perhaps think, oh, John, that's crazy to do the 40 days. Oh, John, it's crazy to have those values. What do we do in those situations? Because so many people are struggling with those naysayers in their life.
Yeah, I'm going to go right back to the 4 survival skills like that, and how they pertain to that. Think about the person that's saying that type of thing to you. They desperately want to be in control of you. They want to be right. And them being in control and being right allows them to feel good, maybe not look so good. But think about the
ego. Is the deeper root on that? Is that ego?
That certainly comes into play. Ego, pride, status, all that stuff for sure. Yeah. So I think it always helps to think about why they are saying those things. And it's important again. Well, okay, I'm going to kind of pull up another model here. So, in this, if someone comes to you and says something to you, that's a circumstance that you can't, it's not out of your control. If someone comes up and says something to you, that's just a thing that happens, right?
Right.
You have no control over that. But after they say that thing, that circumstance happens, you have a thought, and then you have a feeling, and then you take an action, and then you have a result. So if someone comes up and says, that's stupid, you shouldn't be doing that, and your thought is, oh, yeah, I'm embarrassed, you're right. And then your feeling is embarrassed, and the action you take is to kind of sink in and not do the thing you said you were going to do. And the result is to not make any traction in what you want. So something you can always do, you can't control that circumstance, but you can control the next step, which is your thought, your thinking. Mm-hmm. So we can change our thoughts. It's not necessarily easy. And sometimes we don't want to change. If there was a tragedy and someone in my family died, I'm not going to change my thought about how I feel about that because I'm super sad. That's okay. But there's times when you may want to change your thought. And the reason you want to do that is because you want to change the result. So if someone comes to you and says something that's negative, and you have that whatever thought you have, that's going to lead to a result of not making gains, think about the result you want. The result you want is to take action regardless. And what other true thought could you have that would be the feeling and the action and the result that would be what you're looking for? So an example, maybe I'm going to climb Kilimanjaro. And people are saying, oh, you can't do that. You're overweight or whatever. You can change your thought to something other than that. And what would an example be? I can do that because I can hire a personal trainer. They can help me get in shape, and that makes me feel good and positive. And so the action I take is I hire that personal trainer, and the result is I climb Kilimanjaro. And there's one reason I'm using that example is because, you were on my podcast. I have a podcast. I only have a handful of episodes, and I'm not as prolific as you. But I had a woman on there named Tina Sibley, and she experienced that.
She was on my show. I was just thinking about her. I think
really?
Mark Winnie. Yeah. So I was thinking about the same person. How funny.
Yeah, same person. Yeah. So she experienced that, and I don't know if she would frame it up exactly like that, but I learned that model, and I think it's a really useful model. The circumstance, thought, feeling, action, result model, and knowing that you can change your thought and that will ultimately change the result. But it has to be a true thought. Don't tell yourself something that's not true and try and be, all woo-woo and say things that aren't real. Say something that's real, that's true. That gives you a different feeling, different action, different result.
Yeah. That's exactly what we were talking about before, is shifting that perspective. How can I shift my perspective a little bit? And what I'm hearing you say is talking about the fact that we actually, the one choice that we have in those situations when we're delivered information is that we can react to it or we can respond to it. And I love, again, keeping things simple. It's like, okay, I can react to it emotionally and go, what do you mean I can't fucking do it? What do you mean you're full of shit? And, and yes, I can. Or we can sit there and go, okay, that's an interesting question. That's an interesting statement. Where is that coming from? Can you tell me more about that? Why you don't feel that I can do that? It is something perhaps we often don't like in others, but we don't like in ourselves. So perhaps that's something that person is dealing with. Yeah. So that's why I always encourage my clients and people listening to this is we have that opportunity, that agency, if you will, to sit there and say, okay, am I going to respond to this, or am I going to react to this hand? Or am I going to respond to it? And we could take that pause and sit there and say, okay, going back to what you had said earlier, am I taking this personally? Do I have to be right? Or is there some opportunity for growth in there? Because when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change, which is what Dr. Wayne Dyer says. Yeah. And so I love that in the fact that when we are in those positions, it's an opportunity for us to grow. And so that's what I tell people is to hit the pause button, push in the clutch if people still remember how to drive a stick shift, tap the brakes, whatever it might be, because we have that opportunity in those moments to sit there and say, how can I grow from this? How can I not take this personal? How can I not take this as a part of my ego and instead use it as an opportunity for growth, to overcome that fear, to become more committed, to dig deeper into my own truth? And so my next question for you, and thinking about that and thinking about what we're doing, is because I'm hearing is questions. Like when we ask ourselves different questions, we get different answers. And you've asked a couple of pretty powerful questions during this interview, or this discussion, I should say. I'm massively a big fan of questions. I had a guy on my show that wrote, I was just talking about the other day, he wrote 5 or 6 books on questions. And I was so fascinated. I read them. What are like your top 3 favorite questions, perhaps, that either get you to change your perspective about things, or get somebody else to change their perspective about things, or that inspire you to think differently? Because there's so much power in questions. And you've already mentioned a couple of them tonight.
Yeah. I'd like to share something that's not a question, but but I think it's a powerful statement that you can think about how you're answering it, maybe. So, and someone shared this with me several years ago, and it's always stuck with me. It's like, life is either a series of complaints or it's an adventure. And the beauty of that is you get to choose which one it is. So is your life currently a series of complaints, or is it an adventure? And I know a lot of that is a series of complaints, because I sit down with them sometimes because I have to, and I listen to them, and I listen for a while, and then I leave because I can't be around that for too long. But think about it. Is your life a series of complaints, or is it an adventure? Because you have the agency, again, to choose which one of those things it is. And of course, there's like, okay, speaking of pain either way, I mean, which do you want? The pain of staying where you are, or the pain of growth? Now, some people, I
love that.
Yeah, some people want the pain of staying where they are. And really, I mean, if that's what you want, that's what you want. That's fine. But think about that. Do you want the pain of staying where you are, or the pain of growth? Because there's pain either way. And my perspective, of course, is take the pain of growth. Why wouldn't you do that, right? Why wouldn't you do that? Because you're ultimately going to be in a better place and more pleased with yourself in your life. And which also brings up this, like, you're not necessarily, that's not going to make you happy all the time. I think another misconception people have just about life is, and I used to think this too, it's like, if I do the right things and blah, 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 I'll be happy, right. And everyone's striving to be happy. And there's all these books about being happy. Okay, here's the reality. Life's good and life's bad. Sometimes you're happy, sometimes you're not. And think of it, it's like a 50-50 mix. Some days they're not good. Some days are great. Bad things happen that are out of your control, and you can't control them. But like you said, you can control your response to them. So I'm kind of going a different direction there. But that whole idea of everyone trying to be happy kind of drives me crazy, because I think it's making people unhappy.
It is. It is. So in what you're talking about right there, I love that. So what would you say is the biggest pain point that you might be running from now, that you're struggling with, that you're challenged with, that you have to sit there and say, okay, I need to go head on into that, as opposed to giving myself an excuse or a way out of it?
For myself personally?
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought, well, I'm building a business, and I think one of my pain points is the consistency in putting myself out there. So, and one of the questions you asked on my podcast, when I asked you to share something at the end, is what are you tolerating? And I think it's like, what are you tolerating yourself, others, in the physical world? Is that how you frame that up?
Yeah. What are you tolerating from yourself, from others, and then inanimate objects?
Yeah. So one of the things I'm tolerating for myself, but starting to take action on, is that consistency in getting my message out and my word out, and in particular around the work I'm doing with schools, which I can take a high school leadership team, and in 2-3 hours I can take from them not knowing what their problem is to identifying problems, prioritizing problems, identifying solutions, prioritizing solutions, running them through an effort impact matrix, and identifying the low-hanging fruit and which ones are projects, and taking action on those things. Because being in public education and watching schools not take so long to get anything done, if anything, it's absurd, and there's a much better way of doing things. That was just a little plug for what I'm trying to do right now.
No, good.
But it's like I just think it's a great way to approach problem solving and agency and taking action, but at a school level instead of a personal level.
That's awesome. And so let me go a little bit deeper on that. What's the pain point for you not wanting to be consistently and showing up for what it is that you're building?
The pain point, I think it has been at some level not being sure what to do. So I'm working with people now that are helping me figure out what to do. Like I just sat down with a gentleman a couple of days ago, and he ran through this whole program. We got it all set up. And now he's going to train me on Friday, and then I'll be ready to go and take action on those things. So it was, excuse me. I just went to this, a few weeks ago. Spent a weekend at a mastermind in LA, El Segundo, actually, at school headquarters, school at the app, SKOOL.
I've heard of it.
Yeah. So, and it's a great place to build communities. Anyway, I sat down with about 15 other people with this CEO, a young guy from Berlin. And here's something to learn from that. I'm much older. I'm 30 years older than this guy, 25 years older. I can learn a ton from this guy.
Yep.
And that's why I paid a lot of money to go there and sit in that group for 2 days, right? Where was I going with this? I actually forgot what I was going to say.
Pain point as to why you're not taking action.
So he helped me identify some of my pain points. And, there's things like
fear of being judged.
I think that's there, but I think that's always there at some level, I think, but I don't think it's really a pain point now. I think they were more things like thinking I had to do it all myself and trying to do it all myself. And then through him and the conversation, it's like, oh yeah, what am I doing? So I've reached out to someone on Fiverr, and they're doing some work for me, doing some awesome work that I don't have to do now. I don't have to think about it. It'll be ready for me to use. So, and like my workspace, it's like, I don't always have to work from home where there's like a refrigerator and multiple distractions. So yesterday I started working at a co-working space, which is beautiful, and the coffee's free, well, I pay for it, I guess, with my monthly fees, but so those are actions I'm taking right now to improve the work I'm trying to do. So, but there's always more to be done. There's always more to be done, right? I don't have things figured out. I don't pretend to be a guy that's got it figured out. I'm just always figuring it out. And here's another thing I learned from that mastermind. Everything is figure outable. Okay.
Marie, what the hell was her fuck? Marie Forleo. She wrote a book about that. Everything is figure outable. Really? It was a phenomenal book. Phenomenal. Talking about that, there's always some way and something that we can do. Everything is definitely figure outable. Dude, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you for your vulnerability and talking about your pain points and talking about your struggles and whatnot and some of your experiences, because I know, like I said before we started the conversation, that there's somebody watching. There's plenty of people watching and listening that are in John's position. They're in Chris's position. And I know the conversation tonight has brought massive value to them. Where can people get a hold of you to continue the conversation and learn more about what you do?
Yeah, well, my website is dromgard.com, DROMGARD. And Dromgard, I don't speak Swedish, but I Googled it. And it's actually, when you take dream farm in English and convert it to Swedish, it turns into that word. And it's like I want to help people nurture dreams, and whether they're in schools or personal. And then my email is John, JOHN @Dromgard. gmail.com. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions, thoughts, whatever you want to share. Love to hear from you.
Dude, this has been a phenomenal conversation. I appreciate you so much. Like I was telling you before when I was joking around that we could go 2 or 3 hours, I'm just getting warmed up. Like now I'm like, okay, we can go deeper on this. We can go deeper on this. We didn't even talk about negative self-talk in the deeper sense of what it is. So I'd love to have you back on the show and continue the conversation with you. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to put you backstage. I'm going to finish out the show, but don't go anywhere so I can still have a word with you afterwards. But it's been an honor having this great conversation with you.
Gotcha. Thanks, everybody.
You got it. You got it. So there you have it, boys and girls, rock stars. I know you guys are listening and watching. So like I said before, what is it that you're going to do? Right? What is it going to do? No, I wasn't so inspired. You know, I'm going to do that thing. Like I know John was looking at something when he was talking about his values. I have whiteboards. I have 5 whiteboards right in front. 6 whiteboards in front of me, all with shit on them. Right? So you're constantly writing stuff down. But here's the bigger thing you can do. And this doesn't cost you anything. These things called sticky notes. You have a monitor in front of you. Every one of you guys is probably working in front of a monitor. Yes, go like this, Chris. Yes, I agree. You take what you've learned and you put them on your monitor. Like I do. I preach. I practice what I preach. So you take 3 strategies from this conversation, you write them down on your monitor, you put them up there. And then as you're going through your day, hey, have I done that? Like I said before, keep your promises to yourself. Just imagine what you would have accomplished in 2024. The year is almost over. We're heading into fucking October. It blows my mind. I almost said we're heading into September, but we're in September. How many promises did you make at the beginning of the year? And have you kept those promises? So you take the strategies, you write them down, and then every single day you sit there, I need to do my values exercise. Or perhaps a question that you write on a sticky note is this in alignment with my values? Yes or no? Not maybe, not sort of, not well, my other value was this. So stop fucking yourself over. Yes or no? Am I going to be happy with this choice tomorrow? Yes or no? Is this getting me further closer to or further from my stated goal? Yes or no? If I said I want to live until I'm 80, if I want to be here for my kids, but I'm ready to put this fruit pie in my mouth, I'm ready to give myself an excuse not going to the gym, I'm not drinking enough water, I'll do it tomorrow. That's bullshit. Stop it. Keep your promises to yourself, take strategies, and take that imperfect action every single day. This is why my wristbands say unstoppable, no excuses, right? I had to put my other one on the other day because it broke. I won't be wearing it forever, but it says no excuses. And the other word it says on there is believe. Believe. You have to believe. You have to believe in yourself, not the opinions and the judgments from everybody else. That is bullshit. They're trying to hold you down because they're miserable. Like I said before, people often don't like in themselves what they don't like in other people. So they project. Oh, Chris is starting to take action with himself. I've had friends like 75 is hard, stupid. What are you trying to prove? Well, thanks a lot. Thanks for the vote of confidence. Thanks for the go get him, Chris. And I'm going to tell you something that's going to be controversial, that may make your butt pucker, but it's okay to let those people go. It's okay to say, you know what? You were here for a reason, a season, but you're not here for a lifetime, whether it's family and it's friends. And I have personal stories of both. I just wished somebody well last week, and I won't even go into that. But you need a team of people around you. You need the people that are going to support you, that are going to hold you accountable. That's why I was asking John. Every single one of you needs a mentor. You need a support person. You need a coach. And I'm not just saying that because I am a coach, but trust me, I would not be sitting right here in front of you had I not had my coach, had I not have my mentors in my life who challenge me and say, Chris, what do you think about doing this? What do you think about changing that? I want to see you grow to the next level. You need to ditch this. You need to start doing this. You need those people in your life. You need that accountability, but most of all, you need that discipline to yourself. Again, thinking about with the end in mind. How do you want to be remembered? If you died tomorrow, who would show up and what would they say? Are you proud of that? Ask yourself when you go to bed tonight. We're talking about questions. Here's my word for the year, pride. Because when you take pride in yourself, you take pride in your choices, and you go to bed at night and you go, what am I most proud of today? I'm proud I put out a great show tonight that's going to change people's lives. I'm proud that I made my son feel welcome. I'm proud that my wife knows that I love her. I'm proud that I had a great coaching conversation with somebody today. Except I'm proud that I took care of myself, whatever it might be. And then when you wake up in the morning, you say, hey, wow, it's a beautiful day. What am I grateful for? Because so often we wake up and we go, oh, fuck, I got to go to work. Oh, shit, it's going to be a crappy day. Oh, the weather's going to stop. Blah, 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 blah. Negative, negative, negative. Then we pick up these motherfucking things and we sit there and we look at the news. For God's sake, stop watching the fucking news. It's bullshit. Instead, how about sitting there going, hey, I'm grateful for the bed I'm sleeping in. I'm grateful for the fact my air conditioning works. I'm grateful for I have podcasts that help me enrich my life. And then the next thing you do is you set the intention. My intention for the day is to do something that's fighting for what's right and what's fair. My intention is to risk for which that matter. My intention is to make this world a better place. My intention is today's my last day, that my family can know that I was on point, that when they read that eulogy, that I know with 100% certainty as I'm taking my last breath, that I fulfilled that. Pride, where you focus, where they say, what does it say? Where focus goes, energy flows. So if you're focusing on the news, if you're focusing on shit you can't control, guess what? You're gonna bring on more of it. You're gonna bring that stress and that overwhelm and that anxiety. I was just talking with somebody the other day, and they're like, "Don't you think the world's going to hell with AI and da 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 da?" And I'm like, "What are you focusing on?" I said, "Everywhere I go, people are badass. People are fucking cool. Whether they're black, white, straight, gay, transgender, fucking Republican, Democrat, vax, any fucking label you want to put on it. People are cool. If you're having a heart attack in public, nobody's going, oh, he's wearing a fucking Trump hat. I'm not going to help that asshole." Nobody's doing that. Nobody's divisive. The people that are watching the fucking news are divisive. And that's like the fucking fraction of humanity. I'm like, yeah, AI is coming. Yeah, you better get your fucking britches on. You better be harnessing that shit. I use ChatGPT. I was against it. I'm like, I feel lazy. I feel like it's making me not think anymore. But guess what? It's coming whether you want to or not. So now I use that motherfucker. Hey, how can I what I wrote? How can this sound better? How can I make this more conversational in tone? It is here. It is a tool. You have tools in front of you. How about using this thing to learn something new every single day? People sit there and say, I don't know how to, my finances are screwed up, Chris. I don't know what to do. And my first reaction is like, are you fucking stupid? Like, what the fuck? You have the answers right here. How to improve my finances. .pdf. Here's a little tip for you. If you type .pdf, you'll get PDF documents of all the solutions you possibly need. And then you take imperfect action every single day. And guess what? You don't die with regrets. How about that? Does the shoe fit? I want to thank you guys for watching and listening. Please let me know what I can do to serve you. info@noexcusescoach.com. I'm here to serve you. I have a group accountability coaching that is fucking insanely affordable. We meet twice a month. There's a private Facebook group page. There's an upsell, I guess, if you will, where you can have a one-on-one coaching session with me every single month. Put the right people in your life, put the right opportunities in your life so that you don't end the year with regrets and should haves and could haves and all that other stuff. And, oh God, I'm such a this and that. Change what you say to yourself, ladies and gentlemen. I will be back here next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you want to tune in and watch us live, which is kind of cool. I like to watch podcasts. I go and watch 2-hour podcasts. People think I'm crazy, but guess what? I walk away with a whole bunch of notes and I walk away growing myself, learning, growing, that sense of adventure. And please connect with John. He's an amazing individual. Nobody comes on this show that I don't vet first. And come back and join us next Tuesday. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you get podcasts: Spotify, Apple, iHeart, Amazon, wherever. I found a new one that people are subscribing to. I don't even know the name of it. It's not even off the top of my head. But join us. We've been going now. This is 280 episodes. So you think about that. 3 strategies from 280 episodes. How different would your life be? You guys have an amazing night.